Wonderful. Thank you so much, all. Okay, so the next panel is how brands and creators are reshaping entertainment. This will actually be moderated by the one and only Michael Terpin. Panelists include Ed Prado, the CEO at Rair, David Jensen, CEO at Culture Pulse, Hal Bame, founder and CEO at Ojamu, Paul Sheehy, co-founder at Together Group, and Cyprien Grau, co-founder at BEEM. So if I can get you guys to come on up, take a seat.
Well, the all-star panel.
Do you guys all have microphones?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, I'm delighted to be moderating this panel. I know all of you and just disparate parts of the industry, but I'm going to start with really just talking about the journey from brand engagements and content creators and how they've all aligned from kind of a pre-web experience to the Web 1, where in many cases it was sort of anonymous critters out there trying to just find a character to broadcast, one to many when you didn't even have blogs. You just had websites. You were hoping to be found on Yahoo. To Web 2, where really was the dawn, I'd say, of the Instagram influencer and other social media that really disrupted advertising and brand marketing quite a bit. To now Web 3 with NFTs and the Metaverse and all the promise that that has. So I would like to ask each one of you, what do you feel that Web 3 is going to bring, for better or worse, to the relationship between brands and creators and the target audience? I'll start with you. You're the platform. You're the platform guy. I'm going to start with David.
Sure. Great question. And I think the biggest thing it's going to do.
Oh, and introduce who you are too, because that's part of the first question.
Okay, sure. David Jensen. I'm old enough that I've lived Web 1, 2, and now 3.0. So a few gray hairs here. I think the opportunity is, thank you. The opportunity is that we've now be able to plug into the creator economy in a new way with brand advertisers. And I think brand advertisers are starting to see that there's such currency in the creator themselves. That instead of building models that were about aggregating eyeballs, they now have to share a relationship back to that creator. And that's one of the things that Culture Pulse, which is a company that I'm now heading up, was originally an investor advisor, and it's the thing that has really taken me, I'll say, out of retirement. I heard that on one of the earlier calls, where I've been focused primarily on investing and advising in the Web 3.0 space. Michael and I have known each other for over 25 years. And what I'm excited about here is being able to work with creators and unlock the ability for them to connect to new audiences and to control, through things like smart contracts and NFTs, ongoing revenue streams from secondary markets. And so I think all of that is an interesting relationships that's unfolding, and brand advertisers are trying to figure out how they participate in that ecosystem.
Great. And yes, David, you've been a leader at all of those junctures, so Web 3 will be no different. Paul, tell us a little bit about Together and sort of the vision there, and how you see creators and brands coming together in a Web 3 world.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess like you, David, I think I've seen all the iterations of that journey. And in fact, personally, I started out in the world of search when Google just started, and trying to understand that and seeing really how, for brands, the concept of how they need to be effective in all of these different generations of activity hasn't really changed. For me, the essence of what brands need to do is they've got to become publishers of amazing content that really defines, comes from why they exist. And when they do that, they connect with audiences, and they connect authentically with audiences. And that's something that I haven't stopped preaching through my whole career of bringing brands to market, right through from launch through to activation. And actually, it's what kind of led me to co-found the Together Group, which is, for those of you that don't know, Together Group is a global group of world-class agencies that exists to service the luxury, fashion, beauty, lifestyle space of brands. We're probably the leading global agency group in that. So our remit really is to help brands solve this problem at the moment. How do we connect more authentically with these new Gen Z audiences on Web3? But again, it becomes even more focused on the storytelling piece. And when brands communicate really effective storytelling from their why, they're communicating it now in so many different channels, but in much shorter form. So that base that they're communicating it from has to be, really crystal clear. And, that's the job we're doing. Many of our agencies are now working on digital twin projects in NEOM and the whole NEOM coastline. Again, so there's some really exciting stuff going on there, which I'm completely not qualified to talk about. But I do have, we have founders that are leading that side of things and producing some incredible stuff for the brands in that space. Thanks.
Now, as a content distributor, tell us a little bit about BEEM and how they would fit into the brand mix here through your Web3 distribution, and tell us a little bit about yourself and about BEEM.
Cool. Thank you very much. So a very quick intro about BEEM. It's a Web3 video streaming platform for creators, brands, and communities. And we have a pretty cool live event feature where you can basically cast the content to anyone at the same time and then invite people to come on stage, like Twitter Space or stuff like that, but on video. So it's kind of a way to engage your audience in a very interactive way. And so we've been doing, we launched about 2 years ago. We've been doing thousands of events with brands and creators. And one thing that we saw is that with Web3 and the ownership economy that comes with it, a lot of brands are actually reversing their marketing strategy, where before it was like they pay to get their message in front of people. And now it's people coming to them because they produce great content and because they have that engagement that people are looking for. And I think this is a very big shift in terms of understanding the relationship between those brands and their audience, because you have the third party, which is the creators. And what we are seeing now is a lot of brands engaging creators so that they can have a more genuine relationship with their audience, because their audience already like that creator. And so, yeah, basically this is what we've been doing. So now we're raising funds and really going a bit more for scaling. And I think that what's going to come in the next few years is that sensation that in the end, brands are going to just be cultural artifacts. And they are just going to mark specific points in your life in terms of just that relationship. So I'm going to identify with Nike, not because I saw a great spot on TV, but because they created content like a documentary, or they are just engaging in a very different way that is going to touch my feelings or the way I see my relationship with, sports. And having the type of platform like BEEM is a way for brands to really do that messaging directly, in a very direct relationship.
Thanks, Cyprien. Ed, so you're a technology platform provider, but really you're still dealing with a lot of brands in terms of being able to empower what NFT creators can bring to brands and to audiences. Talk a little bit about how you see the engagement between brands and audiences and creators.
Yeah, it's so I live the Web 2.0 world as well with David. I have less gray hair, and I don't color it. But back then, it's funny. You've gone from banner ads to social media to this insane like narrowing and this intertwining of the consumer, the brand, and the creator. And they're really all becoming sort of formulated as one. And it's amazing because we had a lot of like Hollywood and movie people speaking this morning and talking about how opaque and how they don't have access to data on their movies. Like you sell something to Netflix, you get nothing. But the great thing about blockchain is it's all open. It's all open kimono. And you can actually go out and see who's holding the Nike NFTs. And if I'm Adidas, I can create a movie and actually drop that or get that close to those people that are holding the NFT and create a campaign around that. That is what we've built. We have a platform. It's a full stack platform from minting the NFT to discovering where you can place that NFT. And we're doing this. We sort of came out of our shell and thought, well, the 2.0 people have a lot of friction to get into our world. But the 3.0 people have a lot of community. And if we can drop, what we call it is it's a utility drop, so we can find those Nike sneaker holders, the crypto kicks or whatever, which is an insane project. They're going for like, hundreds and thousands of dollars. Nike could be a company that is a brand that makes more on their digital goods than they do on their physical goods, which is like an insane concept, but that's what we're living. But if we could discover those users, and Hal's got a lot of technology, he's going to talk about this. If we can discover those users and then drop content from a competing brand that has to do with documentaries and what have you, then all of a sudden you have this very vibrant ecosystem that's fighting and actually providing value to the end user and not so much extracting value, which is really an important paradigm shift. So that's what we're up to, and we're really excited. And the space is moving at light speed. Like every day something else occurs or happens, and the last 2 years have seen this just an insane amount of adoption from the brand community, which is exciting for us.
So Hal, talk a little bit about what you're doing at Ojamu and how this brings together all these pieces.
I'm going to keep it super short because that's a lot of intros, I think, for everybody to listen to. So pretty much, I mean, Ed gave me the best intro, I think, of the stuff we're looking at doing, and everything that's been said here is pretty much what we're trying to back with tech. So Ojamu is a platform built for brands to help them not only navigate Web3, but automate their campaign decision making, ultimately. Actually, with Rair, Ed and I, we both live in LA, but we refuse to meet there for some reason. We meet at all of Michael's conferences and other things. So, but we are probably looking at partnering up because the tech is very complementary with each other. What we want to do is provide the real data that brands can make informed decisions on. When we brainstormed Ojamu in 2019, we actually thought it'd be about 2023 before brands began to go in heavy, and we were 2.5 years late, probably something like that. Nobody expected brands to go in as big or heavy as they did. And when Paul's talking about the ethos of how brands want to talk to people ultimately, how they want to connect, that's never going to change. And when you're talking to brands and trying to provide services and solutions, more importantly to them, you have to speak to them in a language they understand. So we're trying to basically develop this platform that, one, gives them the data that they've been used to using for 20 years on 2.0, but on 3.0, so you got to explain Web3 a bit. Brands are diving in corporate FOMO. There's been a lot of mistakes, which maybe we'll talk about on the panel a bit, i.e. Adidas Mutant Apes, disaster one, and that hurt me and I think a few others trying to get that. But more importantly, as you develop solutions for them, have these solutions work in a manner where they can relate to it, i.e. brands have all run focus groups. They've run social media account groupings, things like that. You can do the same thing with Web3 with wallets. And what we're trying to do is have the whole process end to end, where it's first, demographics, wallet analysis, competitor landscapes, all of this with AI and data partners. And then as the AI gets more and more data, it comes up with smarter and smarter solutions in an automated fashion. So you can remove that 21-year-old kid in the marketing department who says, I think we should do this. And this way, a multi-billion-dollar company can do an analyst call with every quarter with their CEO and their CMO saying, we actually base this on tons of data, we can back it up. It was not an intuition thing. or a quick SWOT analysis, which you'd be surprised the amount of multi-billion-dollar brands that they're doing right now. So.
Great. So I'm going to get into some more specifics, and I'm going to go back into time. Vitalik's dad, Dmitry Buterin, posted a chart of growth of adoption of the internet and of blockchain, and it's been pretty much the exact same percentage, except you start from 1991 with the birth of the web. Internet, of course, had been around for 20-something years prior, but the web started in 91. And then you'll start with the adoption of blockchain 25 years later, and they started tracking that around maybe 2015 or so. And we are right now in 1997. So I remember, for those of you who weren't in diapers at the time, 1997, there was the same kind of questions about this internet thing as there are about blockchain right now. Who's going to use it? I remember a couple years earlier in 1994, a major studio saying, no one's going to use this internet thing. My mom is not going to go and put in a second modem line and have this thing go all night long just so that she can get this really slow thing that downloads a movie in 3 hours. Today, here, Mom, here's an iPhone, look at Netflix, right? So it's about the technology scaling to the needs of the market, and there's nothing in what we've seen about the way that blockchain has scaled over the last just 8 or 9 years, from where there was only one place in the world to get it, bartering on Bitcoin talk, to then Mt. Gox and all the disasters that was, to now having like thousands of DEXs and centralized exchanges, and also we're now starting to get to the point where it's becoming invisible, hence credit cards to buy NFTs and metaverses. So the question is, I remember the Variety internet advertising seminars that they had, and they had a conference, I think it was around 98 or 99, and they were still saying that the people who run the studios don't get the internet. They're not going to go for it. We have to wait until they retire or die. Are we in that situation now where the people running the brands are not getting it, or are they going in hard? We've certainly seen a little bit. And if so, are they going to be tourists like they went in for 4 seconds for Second Life and then came screeching back out when they realized that there was not anybody there, and the ones that were there were just sort of like throwing graphic porn at their consumers? So I'll start with David. I know it's sort of a loaded question, but where are we going to go, particularly in NFT and Metaverse, and what's the factor holding back brands from really coming on board? Is it the consumer, or is it their own legacy priorities?
Well, the short answer is it's both. But yeah, thank you. It's a great question, because we're really about mass adoption. When Michael and I were at Satoshi Roundtable earlier this year, and the thing in the sessions that I sat in that really resonate with me, especially given having some gray hairs and going through this journey with into Web 2.0, is mass adoption. And everybody at every session talked about, how do we bring down the friction? This is actually one thing Culture Pulse saw as an opportunity, and was partially what was our hypothesis, was how do you take a group of folks that are in Web 2.0, mass adoption of Web 2.0, and bring them into Web 3.0 frictionlessly. And very simply, what we've been doing is working in the short term with Shopify, where when you transact in a Shopify experience, you put something in a cart, and I can talk more about what Culture Pulse's value proposition, which is Fidgetables, connecting physical items with their digital NFT companion. It creates a wallet in the background. And what we're seeing, especially from the investors that we've been pitching to, because we're doing a raise right now, and everybody has said yes, other than one group, is, oh, I get it. Like, I get this physical thing on the wall, and I get the digital companion to it that opens up opportunities for a digital twin in the metaverse. And I'm going to bring people along for the journey, and it's going to be frictionless. And I think it's both the brands, back to your question, Michael, and the consumer. And so I think brands are definitely, and definitely Ed and Hal can talk about what brands are doing in that. And they are putting their toes in, more than just their toes. But I think you're right. In Web 1 and 2.0, we saw them go in and come back out. I think there's more stickiness there, especially if you can show behaviors and take behaviors that are endemic into Web 2.0, like, oh, I use Amazon and Shopify every day, and oh, I get this wallet and this NFT thing. I don't even know what that is, but I'm already in Web 3.0. That's going to be part of what I feel and what Culture Pulse believes is going to help make that bridge into Web 3.0 for that mass adoption. At the same time, we want to serve the folks that are firmly in Web 3.0 so they can use ETH and use crypto to transact, and it can go in their MetaMask wallet. But it's that large adoption that we need in order to get the volume.
There was I'll just add to it.
And
Go ahead.
Erica just showed me the time's up. I'll just have everybody kind of give quick answers so that we still get the questions answered. Paul?
Yeah, look, again, I think it comes down to the strategic part of it, and how can brands, when somebody goes to a brand with a strategic proposition that makes sense and adds value to their users and syncs up with their whole strategy, then they're going to jump at it, and then you're going to have those early first movers. And I think about it in the luxury space. What can we do with a luxury client or a luxury hotel chain client like the Edition Hotels? How can we do something that's going to really be game-changing for their audience, that's not just jumping on the bandwagon and doing some NFTs for the sake of it? So I think it comes down to creating really thoughtful campaigns that add value to the user and elevates the brand positioning in the audience's mind. So that's our challenge.
Super.
Yeah, so very quickly, I think that a lot of brands are going to get burned, to be honest. We've already seen that. For example, Tiger Beer, they released a full NFT collection that just basically crashed like 2 days later because they need to, again, provide value to the community. And it's cool to just drop some pictures and make people pay for it. But the reality is that you need to have an actual strategy behind it and like a long-term vision of why are you doing that? Are you doing that just for the fun and for being like surfing the wave, or is there like an actual like long-term vision of what your brand wants to become in that metaverse or whatever Web3 becomes? And so yeah, I do think that we will see a lot of more brands just trying out stuff that will fail. But some of them will, like Nike, will actually manage to do something very cool and that will engage people and that will be very successful.
Two ideas here. For the consumer to just jump on Web 3.0, there's two things that have to happen. It has to do with friction and it has to do with utility. If you guys remember back with the internet, it was such a pain in the ass to log into the internet. And many people didn't do that because the reward was just like bulletin boards of discussions that were boring. But then eBay came along. Then these opportunities, and the consumer actually thought, wow, that's really cool. I should jump on and check it out. That's what Web 3.0 needs. And that's what Rair, we're working on creating a utility that's actually bound into an NFT that the consumer could actually enjoy. A streaming movie, a music, a song, a podcast, something that's actually engages the consumer. Once that consumer's engaged, the brands will come in and just blow that up and actually advertise to these people. On the friction side, note MetaMask. You can now get on your cell phone and buy with Apple Pay Ethereum through your MetaMask wallet, so that the friction every day is becoming less and less. You're no longer, the modem kind of online, download a browser, like that all went away. It was all very like, you can do it on your phone now. And that's what we see. So those two things, utility and the friction. And the more that resolves itself, the bigger and better the space is going to be.
And what I was going to say before actually works out to answer this question. And it follows on what you said, Paul. I think it has to be worthwhile of any time a brand does an exercise. I think one of the best ones I've seen in 2 years is if anybody saw the Warner Brothers announcement they did in April. It was genius. They put some serious thought into this. They had 4 guys on stage at NFT LA, and it was best 3D design studio in the world, head of DC Comics, head of DC Art, and Warner Brother Digital Strategy. And they go, we're going to release 200,000 Batman cows. NFTs. And everyone's like, okay, that's interesting. But then they got into what they're going to do with it. And one of the things they're going to do is you buy the cow, depending on the rarity, and it'll be like a blind drop or whatever where they did it. Your ideas for the next Batman movie might be implemented. And that is mega. Because there are some, imagine if you did that with Star Wars fans. Imagine if you did that with Marvel fans. These guys, I mean, to actually get there and be in the content for super passionate, low-hanging fruit, loyal community, that's what you're talking about when it's game-changing stuff. And they're putting $1 billion behind
And
it.
so
or
it
whatever
comes down really to technology enabling community, and I mean that's what turned Bored Apes from quirky-looking monkeys into a multi-billion-dollar behemoth. So
And also commitment. I mean, imagine how many divisions in Warner Brothers has to commit to something like that. That's a huge, huge move. So that's what you want to see.
okay, I've gotten the axe a while ago from Erica. I will now get off the stage and thank our panelists, and everyone will be able to answer a lot more questions at lunch. So,
Thanks, everybody.
thank you, panelists.